Welcome back to LeanReads, your go-to place for life-changing ideas and timeless wisdom from the world's best books. What do we really know for certain? Is the world as it appears to us, or is there a deeper reality hidden behind our senses? In The Problems of Philosophy, Bertrand Russell challenges us to rethink knowledge, truth, and the very purpose of philosophy. If something resonates with you today, you'll find a link to the full book in the description. Let's dive right in. The Problems of Philosophy, 1912, is an accessible introduction to some of the most fundamental issues in philosophy. The book examines the nature of reality, explores the limits of human knowledge, and affirms the value of philosophical inquiry. It encouraged readers to question their assumptions about the world and the ways we come to know it. Bertrand Russell, 1872 to 1970, was a British philosopher, logician, and social critic. He made groundbreaking contributions to mathematical logic, analytic philosophy, and political theory. Russell co-authored the classic Principia Mathematica and wrote numerous influential works, including a history of Western philosophy. In 1950, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature for his diverse and impactful writings in support of humanistic ideals and freedom of thought. Exploring reality through philosophy and logic, have you ever wondered whether the world around you truly exists in the way you perceive it, or whether what you believe to be true is actually true at all? In The Problems of Philosophy, Bertrand Russell challenges us to question everything we take for granted as obvious or self-evidently true. Russell raises some of philosophy's most fundamental questions. Can we place complete trust in our senses? Might there be a reality beyond what we can see, hear, touch, smell, and taste? By persistently asking such questions, Russell encourages us to think more deeply about the nature of knowledge, its origins, and its limits. The book also delves into the classic debate between idealism and realism. Russell asks whether the world is merely a projection of our minds, or whether it exists independently and objectively, regardless of human perception. He also examines the problem of universals, the general properties shared by things, such as redness or roundness. Do these qualities truly exist in the material world, or are they abstract concepts, ideas that live only in our minds? As Russell argues, the purpose of philosophy is not to deliver final, absolute answers to every question, for no answer can be wholly certain. Rather, its value lies in raising these foundational questions and guiding us through their implications. This condensed exploration introduces you to Russell's central ideas, many of which continue to shape how we think about knowledge and reality today. How do you know what you think you know? Bertrand Russell was born in 1872 into an aristocratic family in England. His lifetime witnessed enormous social and intellectual upheavals. As the Victorian era gave way to the 20th century, Russell emerged as a pioneering voice in philosophy, mathematics, and social reform. Educated at the prestigious University of Cambridge, he quickly established himself as a brilliant logician and philosopher. His early work focused on the foundations of mathematics, culminating in the monumental Principia Mathematica, 1910 to 1913, co-authored with Alfred North Whitehead. In 1912, at the age of 40, Russell published The Problems of Philosophy. The book appeared at a time when philosophy itself was undergoing dramatic transformations. Traditional metaphysics was being challenged by the rise of new methods drawn from logic and science. Alongside contemporaries such as G.E. Moore, Russell became a leading figure in this intellectual revolution. With The Problems of Philosophy, he distilled complex philosophical issues into language that was both clear and accessible to a wider audience. In this work, Russell introduces readers to fundamental questions about the nature of reality, the limits of human knowledge, and the value of philosophical inquiry. He asks questions that remain central even today. What do we truly know? How can we be certain of our knowledge? What value does the study of philosophy bring? The following chapters explore these essential themes and explain why Russell's insights continue to exert such a profound influence on philosophy. To begin, Russell turns to the question of the nature of reality. He analyzes the distinction between appearance and reality, raising doubts about our everyday assumptions about the external world. Can our senses be trusted to reflect reality as it truly is? From here, he examines the limits of human knowledge, asking what we can know with certainty and how knowledge is acquired. This leads naturally to one of the central debates in philosophy: idealism versus realism. Russell revisits this long-standing controversy, probing whether the external world exists independently of the human mind, while offering his own thoughtful perspective. Finally, Russell devotes significant attention to the concept of universals. These are abstract properties or qualities shared by many things. Do universals exist independently of particular objects? For example, redness is a universal. But does red exist even if no red object exists? By posing such questions, Russell sets the stage for a profound exploration of knowledge, reality, and the nature of philosophical thought itself. Appearance and reality. Imagine sitting in front of a table. You see its smooth surface, feel its solid weight, and admire its rich brown color. But is the table really as it appears to you? Bertrand Russell challenges us to look deeper. Russell uses this ordinary object to raise a fundamental philosophical question. What is the relationship between appearance and reality? At first glance, the answer seems obvious. The table is simply what you see before you. But Russell shows that your experience of the table shifts depending on your perspective and the conditions under which you observe it. For example, as you move around the table, its shape appears to change. From one angle, it looks rectangular. From another, it seems trapezoidal. If the lighting changes, so does its color. Under a warm lamp, the wood looks deep and golden brown. In daylight, the color appears paler. Even the sense of solidity you feel is just your experience of resistance when you press against it. You perceive the table pushing back, but that alone does not tell you the full story of what the table really is. So what, then, is the real table? Is it merely a collection of our sensations, or is there an independent reality behind those sensations? According to Russell, what you experience is based on sense data, your immediate, subjective impressions of color, shape, texture, weight, and so forth. These sense data are certain and undeniable. You are experiencing them. But they are not the table itself. They are only the data through which your mind interprets the existence of a table. Russell proposes that there must be a real table that exists independently of your perception, some physical object that causes these sense data. This real table, as scientists would describe it, consists of atoms, molecules, and energy. Yet Russell emphasizes that we can never experience this real table directly. We are always limited by our senses and by the interpretive framework of the mind. The distinction between appearance and reality has profound implications. It suggests that the world you think you know is, in a sense, constructed by your mind from raw sensory input. This raises difficult questions about the objectivity of perception and the possibility of accessing reality as it truly is. The gap between perception and reality highlights the limits of human knowledge and the mysterious nature of the material world. Russell's simple example of a table is not a trivial thought experiment. It is an invitation to question your assumptions about the supposedly solid and reliable world around you. By examining something as ordinary as a piece of furniture, Russell opens the door to a deeper understanding of perception and reality. So the next time you go about your day, take a moment to consider how much of what you perceive is mere appearance and how much is reality. The answer may be far more complex and fascinating than you think. The nature of knowledge. The sun will rise tomorrow. This feels like an undeniable truth. But how do you know this for certain? Philosopher Bertrand Russell challenges us to examine the foundations of our knowledge and to question just how secure they really are. First, consider a simple mathematical truth. 2 plus 2 equals 4. We know this is true, regardless of any real-world experience. Russell calls this a priori knowledge truths that are self-evident and do not depend on observation. Now contrast this with another example. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius at sea level. This is empirical knowledge, gained through observation and experience. But can we claim this truth with the same level of certainty as 2 to 4? Russell argues that much of what we know about the world is built on the method of induction, the process of drawing general conclusions from particular observations. We have seen the sun rise countless times, and so we expect it will rise again tomorrow. But while this expectation seems reasonable, it is not guaranteed by logic. The central problem of induction is this: how can we justify beliefs about what has not yet been observed, based only on what we have observed? This question strikes at the heart of scientific reasoning, and indeed at the way we make sense of the world in everyday life. Russell does not provide a simple solution to this problem. Instead, he encourages us to recognize the difference between kinds of knowledge and their varying degrees of certainty. Some truths, such as those in mathematics and logic, can be known with absolute certainty. But most of our knowledge of the physical world is provisional, probable, conditional, and based on assumptions. This distinction does not mean we should distrust everything. Rather, it deepens our understanding of knowledge itself. It reminds us to examine our beliefs carefully and to ask what evidence supports them. As Russell once remarked, a person with no acquaintance with philosophy lives imprisoned in the prejudices derived from common sense, from the habitual beliefs of his age or his nation, and from convictions which have grown up in his mind without the cooperation or consent of his deliberate reason. By continually questioning the nature of knowledge, we free ourselves from unexamined assumptions, become more open to new ideas, and are better equipped to face the complexity of the world around us. Idealism and realism. You may have heard the seemingly odd question: if a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? Believe it or not, this question captures the essence of a major philosophical debate between idealism and realism. Idealism, supported by philosophers such as George Berkeley, claims that the world exists only in our minds. According to this view, your experience of the forest is the entirety of reality. There is no independent material world outside of perception. As Berkeley famously put it, to be is to be perceived. At first, this may sound absurd. Surely the forest continues to exist even when you are not there. But Russell challenges us to prove this assumption. After all, we only ever have access to our own perceptions. How can we be certain there is something beyond them? Russell admits that refuting idealism outright is difficult. However, he leans toward realism, arguing that it is more reasonable to believe in a material world that exists independently of our minds. This objective reality is the source of our perceptions, but is not identical with them. Thus, if a tree falls in a forest with no one around, the realist insists that it still produces a sound, whether or not anyone hears it. Yet realism, for Russell, does not mean we can fully grasp this objective reality. Recall the example of the table. We experience only sense data, not the table in itself. Still, realism affirms that a real table exists and causes those sense data. The debate between idealism and realism may seem abstract, but it has far-reaching implications. Realism forms the foundation of scientific inquiry, which assumes an objective world waiting to be studied. It also resonates with our everyday intuition that the world does not vanish when we close our eyes. Reflecting on these positions invites us to examine our own assumptions about reality. Do we create the world through our minds, or are we discovering a world that exists independently of us? Universals and particulars. Consider two red apples. They are distinct objects, yet they share a common property: redness. This shared feature is what Bertrand Russell calls a universal. In the Problems of Philosophy, Russell examines the age-old debate about the nature of universals and their relationship to particular things. Particulars are the specific, concrete entities we encounter in the world: the apple on your desk, the chair in your room, the neighbor's cat. Universals, by contrast, are the properties or qualities these particulars share. Red, round, sweet, all of these are universals. Why does this distinction matter? Russell argues that universals are essential to how we think and talk about the world. When you say, "All roses are red," you are not merely referring to the roses you have seen. You are invoking the universal concept of rose and its connection to the universal red. We also rely on universals when learning something new. Imagine encountering a fruit you have never seen before. You might describe it as round like an apple, but purple like a plum. In doing so, you use universals: roundness, apple, purple, plum, to make sense of a new particular. Russell's view of universals has roots in Plato's theory of forms, but he modernizes it. Unlike Plato, he does not place universals in a separate realm of existence. Instead, he sees them as abstract entities not located in space and time, yet real in their own right. This perspective challenges both idealism and materialism. Universals are not just ideas in our minds, nor are they physical objects. They are a distinct kind of reality, indispensable for thought and language. As Russell writes, the study of universals is the central problem of philosophy. For him, understanding universals is the key to understanding how we think, how we communicate, and how we make sense of the world. The value of philosophy. After exploring these abstract ideas, you might ask, what is the point of it all? Bertrand Russell anticipated this very question in the Problems of Philosophy and offered a compelling answer. Imagine living your entire life in a small village, never venturing beyond its borders. Then one day, you climb to the top of the highest hill and see an expansive horizon stretching far beyond what you thought was your world. Suddenly, your perspective broadens and new possibilities emerge. Russell believed that this is what philosophy does for the mind. It frees us from the confines of habitual thinking and expands our intellectual vision beyond the narrow boundaries of everyday life. Philosophy does not necessarily provide final or certain answers. Its true value lies in the questions it raises and the habits of thought it cultivates. Wrestling with philosophical problems trains us in critical thinking, a skill that can be applied across all areas of life. For instance, reflecting on the nature of knowledge can transform the way you approach information. You become sharper, more discerning, and better equipped to evaluate arguments and evidence. Exploring ethical philosophy can deepen your understanding of moral dilemmas and lead to wiser decision-making. Russell himself embodied this approach throughout his turbulent life. After The Problems of Philosophy was published, his career took many unexpected turns. During the First World War, he became a prominent pacifist, a stance that cost him his position at Cambridge University. Undeterred, Russell continued to apply philosophical reasoning to practical issues. In the 1920s and 1930s, he wrote extensively on education, marriage, and social reform. His views were often controversial, but always sparked meaningful public debate. During the Second World War, Russell taught again in the United States, though once more he attracted controversy for his outspoken positions on ethics and religion. After the war, he emerged as a leading voice in the campaign for nuclear disarmament and global peace. He co-founded the Pugwash Conferences, bringing together scientists and influential figures to reduce the risk of armed conflict. In recognition of his immense contributions and prolific writing, Russell was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1950. Until his death in 1970, at the age of 97, he remained deeply engaged with the urgent issues of his time, from the Vietnam War to the cultural upheavals of the 1960s. His life stands as proof of philosophy's practical value, showing that the cultivation of critical thinking and intellectual humility can lead to a life rich in ideals and meaning. This book challenges readers to question their assumptions about reality, knowledge, and certainty. Russell argues that there is a crucial distinction between the appearance of things and their true reality, suggesting that our perceptions may not fully reflect the external world. He distinguishes between different kinds of knowledge, a priori knowledge. He examines the debate between idealism and realism, ultimately siding with realism, affirming that an external reality exists outside of our perceptions. Above all, Russell emphasizes the value of philosophy itself, its ability to expand our intellectual horizons, sharpen our critical thinking, and cultivate a richer, more meaningful life. Reading The Problems of Philosophy by Bertrand Russell feels like stepping outside the narrow walls of everyday thinking and into a much larger landscape of questions. What struck me most is not that Russell gives us final answers. He rarely does, but that he shows us how to ask better questions. The distinction between appearance and reality made me pause and reconsider even the simplest experiences. Something as ordinary as a table becomes a gateway into deep uncertainty. Am I seeing the thing itself, or only my mind's interpretation of sense data? It reminded me that our everyday confidence in what is real rests on fragile assumptions. Russell's discussion of knowledge, especially the problem of induction, felt strikingly modern. In a world overflowing with data, we still face the same challenge. How much can the past justify our expectations for the future? His clarity in separating mathematical certainty from empirical probability gave me a new appreciation for how different forms of knowledge guide our lives. What stayed with me most, however, is Russell's defense of philosophy's value. Philosophy may not hand us absolute truths, but it stretches the boundaries of our imagination. It trains us to be critical, humble, and curious. And when applied to real life, as Russell himself did, it becomes not just an intellectual exercise, but a force for freedom, reform, and peace. Finishing this book, I didn't feel like I had reached the answer. Instead, I felt more open, more alive to the complexity of the world, and more willing to live with questions. And perhaps that, as Russell suggests, is the greatest gift of philosophy. Russell reminds us that philosophy is not about final answers, but about asking better questions. If this book inspired you to think differently, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more explorations of great ideas.